Welcome to Belly Up to the Blackboard, a podcast focused on the reality of teaching and other musings from and about professionals, hosted by Chris Munn and Justin Russell.
Okay, we are live. All right.
We are live.
We're
Is that
live.
what that meant? You didn't give the 3, 2, 1 Wayne's World intro.
I know, right? So we are recording.
Kind of in person.
Yeah. So Liz is back for episode 4. Right?
Yeah.
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 I ditched you last one. I'm sorry.
The alcohol, place that she was at let her loose.
Well, I was locked up for the weekend.
Chris, you have to edit that out.
We can do it. Do we need to though?
My volition to join.
The teacher jail she was in, let her go.
Yes. So how are you guys?
Good. It's
What's new since I last saw you?
it's a great surprise today. We had a 2-hour delay, as you know, and then we ended up with a snow day or an ice day.
Even better.
Yeah, so we figured why not record a podcast? We got the time.
Can I just say, I don't care how old you are, like snow days are the best ever.
Oh my God. Like we stand in front of the TV like we're 10 years old watching the news, right? Like I don't even know what's going on in the world. I'm just watching that little band on the bottom of the screen and like looking for the school that we attend, right?
Yep, that's exactly it. So, a nice surprise, which is really kind of our theme for today, right? Like those surprises in education, some good, some not so good, but talking about like maybe those unexpected things that come along and what do they do to us mentally? What do they do to us professionally? And some good, some bad. Because like today, the surprise, like that was good, right? Like that's a good thing. But there are things that come at us too that you kind of shake your head and double take. So I don't know where you guys want to start, but I think that's the theme for today is talking about like those unscripted events that come into our lives and affect us professionally.
So I've got a topic starter. Let's do it this way. What is the difference of thought process from when you first start teaching on snow days, possible snow days, to like where we are, like 13, 15, 20 years into teaching? Because they're two different thought processes, right? When you first start teaching, what is it when a snow day comes on, your first thought is?
I planned all this stuff for nothing.
Right? I agree. Like, when am I going to get this material in? Or now I'm one day less getting through the curriculum, right?
We missed a day of learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Liz?
You guys are cutting it out. No, I'm going to say I never had that feeling. Like, never did I think like, oh God, like never. I always have taken it like, woohoo, like take back to childhood where the big plow snow drifts were at the end of our dead end street and we just went and convened and played King of the Mountain. Like I have never literally thought, oh shit, how am I ever going to no.
You're the anomaly then is what you're saying.
Oh, I'm gonna bet that anyone listening that there are at least a few people who feel the way I do.
Well,
if Weed's listening, Weed's in my camp. Like he's going now.
Yeah.
Now the difference, and I've seen these memes on Facebook, and it's just like they say, kids today never understand how like you're getting up early, watching the screen like it's the NFL draft, watching for your school to be listed. Now they get a text message before it even starts. Say, oh, I got, school's canceled. I can go back to bed. You don't get up just watching the screen, eyes glued to it.
Okay, but did you keep refreshing?
No, I watched the TV.
Oh, I kept refreshing the website of the news station.
Oh, now?
To
see the closings.
Oh,
right.
I do that now. Yeah. But like said this morning, I kind of had a thought that we were going to have at least a delay. Cause when I let our dog out at like 4, I almost fell on my ass cause it was icy. So then I'm like, oh, we might have a delay. And then we got that. And yeah, so I refreshed the website, but it's a little different.
The website. It is. But here's my question to you guys then. did you work on schoolwork today? Like, okay, first of all, you guys are actually at school. So let's talk about that you guys were already there. But like, seriously, were you productive today? Because I know people who totally took this day and it's like, yeah, like I'm gonna do all schoolwork. I'm not in that camp at all. Like, where do you guys fall?
I'll let Chris start first on that one.
Okay, so well, when it was a delay, we went to school. I went to school after I dropped my kids off at daycare and just assumed that I'll get there a couple hours early, still later than what I normally get, but I get some stuff done for school and for practice. And after that, once we found out it was canceled, I called their daycare to see, hey, do you want me to pick up the kids? And a couple of their friends were there, so they stayed at daycare. So I came home honestly and just played with my dogs. We have a new, a 10-month-old or 10-week-old puppy, and so we just played all day. That's what I did. I don't know about you, Justin.
Yeah, when I was a new teacher, I would just go to the school and work all day. You're right. And obviously, after time has gone on, today, once we found out that the school was canceled, I was like, well, it's a free day. I'm going home. I didn't do anything. I can't tell you what I did the last 8 hours. I don't know what I did.
But as a new teacher, though, and Liz, let me know what you think. As a younger teacher, you always feel like you need to make sure you're overly prepared.
Yeah.
So on a snow day, you go to school and
Liz is shaking her head. No. She said no.
Okay. So my thought process, I guess.
I never had this feeling.
Oh, so I always wanted to make sure I was overly prepared.
Yes.
But now and I didn't have kids. I would, go in and work for a while because it wasn't bad. I mean,
Yeah.
It was icy, but now it's like, you know what? It takes less time for me to get plans set up. So I'm like, I have this day and I just played it. Now I thought the last, after the COVID and doing all of the virtual teaching, I thought there was never going to be a snow day again.
Yep.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah. And I think it's those ones that jump up and surprise you. Like today, I don't think yesterday we ever thought that maybe there was going to be a snow day. So you couldn't tell the kids, hey, make sure you bring your stuff home so you're ready to go. So I think those, you'll still have them, just maybe not as many. When there's a big storm coming in, kids get prepared or teachers prepare kids for the next day. But it's nice to know you do still have a snow day.
Well, yeah, they're on the unsuspected, unplanned surprises. And I think those are the best part about, what we do is they're kind of a perk. I hate to say it's not listed in the benefits package when you apply for the job of teaching, right? Like possible snow days. Nobody puts that in there. But I think that has to be something that everyone keeps in mind that, at the end of the day, we're human. Snow days are snow days. They're free days off, right? So.
Okay, and we'll get into more surprises, and we can edit this out if you want. But also, I just want to note that I come from the generation also, before the online and everything. If you were gonna be gone a day, I still had to drive to the school and drop off my stuff.
Oh.
There was no such thing as hey, I'm gonna email these to you. So I'm aging myself, but that was or you just didn't have them, they just winged it. But
well, we're aging ourselves too by the
call. You actually had to call and call.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna say. Do you remember the call-in? Oh my gosh, do you remember the call-in days? Oh yeah, those are the best. And you always, even when you were sick, Liz, do you remember even when you were sick, you weren't sure if you sounded sick enough, right?
I really won't be there. Yeah. So all right. So we've got the snow day. What are some other when you think of our profession, and so much is really forecast but so much isn't, what are some of those things that pop up either on a daily basis that you go, you kind of know it's coming, but it's always a surprise. And then some things too, that it's oh my God, where did this come from? This is totally out of the blue. Can you think of things that I think by virtue of working with humans every day, you're in for surprises. But also on a system scale, like there are some things that almost still shock us, even no matter how long you're in this.
You know, it's not for me one that pops out, and it's not as bad as it, if you want to say bad, as it used to be when I when I worked at the shelter for a year. But when you get a new kid in the middle of the semester, right? You're not, it's something you don't expect. It just pops up that day. And now all of a sudden, you got to plan, not so much plan for another kid, but I mean, you've got to kind of figure some things out that you didn't expect, right? It's a small wrench, and you don't know the kid. You don't know how he or she is going to mesh with the kids you already have. But again, like working at a shelter, I had new kids coming in every day and kids going out. So, I mean, that made it easier, but now it's still, a kid pops up every now and then, and you're not expecting it. And
well, it's almost you have to start the lesson over, right? Like you're not necessarily progressing every day. You're almost restarting every day.
Yeah. And there's, for some kids, there's certain reasons why they're showing up to your class or your school in the middle of a semester, right? It's, so you're always wondering that too. And you don't know all the information, but you're always wondering, well, why are they transferring or moving in,
Yeah.
spring break or after spring break.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, well, go ahead. No, I was going to say, my unplanned surprise would be, we had the one this year. Remember a couple years ago, the gas leak.
Oh yeah.
In the building, and they had to close the building. Everyone had to evacuate. All the kids got to go home, but that was after buses were able to get there. And
we walked to the middle school.
That is not necessarily a day off. It kind of is, but you're still responsible for kids.
Yeah. I know you had to take all of the kids to the middle school. And then once they were gone and picked up, you could walk back, get in your car and leave.
Yeah.
So it was a half day almost.
Yeah. Almost a half day. Yeah.
So I think that's when we talk about surprises in this profession, like dealing with humans. I mean, I don't know. I guess there are some professions that, like, I'm guessing an emergency doctor is always dealing with surprises. But think about some of those system things, like in your career. Have there ever been any moments where you think, oh my God, like, what was the word I couldn't read? Curveball. Like where a curveball is just totally thrown at you, where it's like it has catapulted you into like a quick turnaround, a quick change, like on your feet. Like, can you guys think of any systems change that seemed to come out of the blue, or maybe just threw a curveball into like what your regular life looked like as far as a professional? I don't know if that's a fair question. I don't know.
No, I get I got one that pops into my head, and it was last year. Was in the middle of a semester, we had to change our assessment for our kids. I mean, talk about a curveball, not just the middle of the year, the middle of a semester. It's,
and not only curveball and assessments, but we had to re-baseline every kid, reassess every kid as where they are, like level wise, determine like differentiation, curriculum differences. And then also we couldn't reschedule those kids and regroup them. Like we had to differentiate almost 4 or 5 different levels of kids in one class period. And I know, and I can't speak for Chris, but I know that's where the frustration came, is we all of a sudden in a 24-hour period had to plan almost 3 different lessons for one class period.
Yeah. And I think, and this is kind of I'll pat myself on the back, and Justin too, is that we're usually pretty good at adjusting on the fly. And I think our administrators would agree with that too, is that, it was a curveball. It wasn't a choice to deal with. We had to. So it's just like, okay, we've got to do this. Let's figure it out. You can't say no, right?
Okay. You know what I just thought of too? Like, I think this speaks to like the new normal, because we didn't even talk about like the mother of all curveballs, COVID. Like
Oh, yeah.
how sad is that that's it's like, sadly, violence, like school shootings have just come like third page news, like COVID, like that was the mother of all systems change, right? And we're not even talking about that. So like, I just think that's a commentary, but you guys are touching on a point that I think is significant, where you talk about like administration and administrators who are not in the classroom on a daily basis, yet sometimes make decisions that cause you to turn on a dime. And how does that play in those relationships? How does that play with morale? How does that change in your perspective of what the hell? Like, I'm trying to do this job. And then like, we know that happens. Like, administrators on a dime, like they just went to a conference and they have this directive or this, and now we want people to close this. Like, so talk a little bit about that too, because there are things you can control and things that are imposed upon you.
Yeah.
And how much of those, I mean, COVID, I said, sadly, we're just going to not talk about that, because that's talk about in like those things that are imposed upon us, and how does that make you feel as an educator? Because I think that when we're talking about this podcast, we're talking about like the collaborative community feeling of what it is to be an educator. So talk about that as an educator standpoint. Like, how does that feel when you are asked, demanded, whatever the word is,
quote unquote, asked,
suddenly change the practice?
Voluntold, right? Yeah.
What'd you say?
Voluntold, or he said asked to do with air quotes, right? No, that's
with air quotes. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And Chris and I have talked about this many times. We almost come back to that idea about the burden of competence, right? Like, once not only admin, but colleagues see that you are competent, that you say what you're going to do and what you mean, you become like 1,000 times more reliable, right? And the idea becomes, as soon as you are seen as somebody who's capable of doing something, regardless of what area it is, you get asked to do a lot more things. Because not only, like Chris said, not only do we have our concerns, but we always will say yes. Like, at the end of the day, of all the teachers that we can think of, we're a small part of that. But I think there's many teachers in our building that will say yes. But Chris and I, when it comes to like, here's a new student, here's a new curriculum, here's a new thing that we want to try, Chris and I always go, we'll make it work. I mean, that's our motto. We have made that kind of our initiative, that we'll make it work. The problem with that is that we put too much on our plate, I think.
I think so. And it's tough to, after you've done that for so long, of saying like, this is too much, right?
Yeah, it's not about saying no, because we know the value in saying we'll make it work. And don't get me wrong, Chris, but correct me if I'm misquoting you, but we like the game of chess. Like, we love the idea of thinking three moves ahead, right? Like, we love that challenge. But the problem with that becomes, and especially for new teachers, like, there shouldn't be the idea that you're trying to plan 3 moves ahead, right? Like, it shouldn't be where we are. And we've said yes to too many things. And I think that's where we are now, is that we love the challenge, but at the same time, we've taken on too much.
And with new teachers too, it's always I want to make sure I'm needed.
Yes.
I want to be asked to do these things, because if I am asked to do these things, they're going to come to me, and now all of a sudden I'm a meaningful part of this.
Right.
I'm a bigger stakeholder.
Absolutely.
And I think new teachers probably do that just for the fact that, at least before, we're short of subs and teachers, is that they wanted to make sure they secured their position in the school or the district. So I think that's when you get a lot of those yeses from new teachers, which, could turn into burnout.
Yes.
The one thing I was thinking about when we talk about, administration asking you, turning on a dime, it's hard to do, but sometimes you almost have to sit back and go, okay, it's not a shoot the messenger kind of deal, because
Yes.
it may be your immediate administrator asking you to do it, but their hands may be tied as well.
Yeah, they're voluntold as well, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to get this initiative off the ground in your building, find people that'll do it, right?
So
And
if you
yeah.
can take a second to think, okay, are they the ones really asking this, or are they just the ones passing it along? Because we can get pretty aggravated or jaded with, you know, the closest relationship with administration,
Yeah.
you know, whatever that closest administrator may be.
Yeah.
But they might not be making that decision. They may just
No.
be, you know, they're the ones telling you to do it, and it's not their. It was not their idea, I guess.
Yep. And Liz and Chris, I think you'd both agree. We all three have a very good relationship with our admin. Like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for you two, but I feel like I can be honest and open with my admin. And I think that has made me comfortable with where I've been for so many years. And if you can find an admin, that means a principal, vice principal, your direct supervisors that you can be open and honest with, and you know they're not going to consequentially punish you because of that, you have a great situation, right? The ability to not only just vent, but bring concerns and know that you're going to be listened to, not necessarily an answer to, but know you're going to be listened to. I think that is the key, right?
Yeah, because they can't always agree with you, and Liz can, you know, give us her thoughts here, but they can't always agree with you with everything, but they can understand what it's putting on you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so I think you guys bring up a couple of good points, and that is one, when changes are imposed on you, like understanding, like, or going back to that commitment that you feel as a professional, you know, and like looking around at the people you're surrounded with, like you can kind of determine who is going to just dig in and realize, like, you know what, this is part of our job, and who's going to push back and really make their lives more complicated, because it's like, okay, like we didn't sign up for a 9 to 5 job. Like
Right.
we know, like this
Yes,
is
we
our
know
job. And then I think that's a tribute to you guys, because you do roll with the punches. And it's not that you don't have your opinions, and it's not that it's not stressful. Like you guys were there today on a snow day. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like you put in the time, but I think you guys are like, you epitomize those qualities that we think all educators have, but we know that not all educators do have. And then the other part was, so that was blowing sunshine to you guys, like, right? Like,
Appreciate it.
you know?
Thank you.
Thank you.
But the other thing is really talking about that relationship with admins, because what you just talked about, I think is, I don't know, I'm curious, like, how do you come to that understanding that admins are sometimes also not acting of their own volition? Like, where in your career do you learn that and understand? Because I have always been a firm believer. I've always had good relationships with my administrators. I've also had knockdown dragouts with every administrator that I've ever worked with. But it's like that cartoon where they just punch in the wolf and the dog, where it's like,
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
like the next day we're good, because I
Right.
worked on those relationships. And what is it that, like, I think there are two camps here. There are people who can have those relationships, and there are people who constantly see an us versus them mentality.
Yeah.
And how do you work towards that? Because as we're talking about surprises, as we're talking about like curveballs that are thrown to us, like that the difference in, like, have you established that relationship? I don't know. Talk a little bit, I guess, like your thoughts, ruminate on that a little bit. Like, how does your relationship with your admin affect how you receive some of those curveballs and surprises?
I think it's one is having that that relationship builds over time. So I don't think as a first year teacher you really have that. I think you build that within, you know, you trust your admin more as the years go by, being able to have those frank conversations, and they trust you as well. For me, I think you can see it a lot of times when if it's a district initiative, you know, you can tell that that's not coming from just your building principal or whoever it may be, admin, but it's top down. Or like you said, if they go to conferences, all of a sudden they, you know, the whole district administration goes to a conference, and you find out what that conference is about, you know, what's coming downhill at you. And the other thing too, I think sometimes, and it depends on your admin, but I think sometimes you can tell just by the way they deliver it, whether it is an idea that they birthed, or if it is something that they're just the the speaker for, or the mouthpiece for.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is that relationship that builds over time. You can kind of tell, if you've worked with an admin long enough, you can kind of tell when it was their idea, when it's somebody else's idea, just by even just body language.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, and I was gonna actually, there's 2 points, and I was gonna pose a question to you, Liz. But the first point that I wanted to make is, I think this goes back to our last podcast about the Great Resignation.
One
right?
that I wasn't in. Okay.
Exactly.
Episode 2.
Episode 2, where we talked about what is it about teachers, because it's not about pay. It's not, I'll take that. It's not just about pay. There are several things. And one thing I wanted to pose to you, Chris, is about, you brought up the thing about trust, which I completely agree. Do you think that it is more, when we think about being open with our admin, and Liz, feel free to add into this because I'd like your opinion too. Do you feel about when being comfortable and open with admin, do you think that is more about us as teachers, the ability to trust our admin, that they'll guard our concerns and thoughts? Or do you think it's more about the ability of admin to trust that we as the teachers will carry out what they need to get done because it's been dictated by the DO? Which one of those do you think it is?
Take my job over here.
No, I seriously, as Liz, you, and I think you posed that question, is when we think about first year teachers, we have nothing but trust in our admin, right? We believe that admin is speaking on behalf of us as teachers. As we do this job more and more and more, would you agree, Chris and Liz, that we start to realize that our job is not dictated by our admin, but more about initiatives from the DO? Is that a true case, or am I kind of making a phantom case here about that?
Liz, go ahead. What do you think?
I think, what is that buzzing? Are you guys getting
Justin's got it. He forgot to turn his phone off.
more important people? I think
No, I know who it is.
this is interesting because I want to say it depends on the district.
Well, speak from your daughter's standpoint then. Like, you said your teacher's is an educator. Like, I would love to know what her thoughts are on this, because she's semi-new, right? Like,
she's about 5 years in, and really, like, she likes her district and she likes her administrators, and like, she has no complaints. It's more like her own personal thing. I'm gonna say, like, in different districts, I have felt more like, oh my God, this is like a total DO thing, versus I think the current situation is more DO. I think my past experiences, like, I have felt totally like there are building initiatives, and those principals are just going to go to bat for the, I don't know. Like, I feel right now.
You kind of cut out there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I've had experiences on both ends where I feel like, in one case, the DO is very much like imposing things. Another one, it's been more collaborative. I've also been at higher ed where it's like that's just a cluster of all on its own. Yeah, I don't know.
so maybe this is a great encouragement to those of you out there that if you want to share what your thoughts are, I think this is a good survey, right? Like, it's a good heartbeat on where us as educators are, because I think in the ability for us to do what we believe is best is not driven by what we see daily, but also it has to align with the district initiatives. And if we don't believe in those, I think that says a lot, right?
Well, and for me, it really comes down to the individual teacher. And I think, like, what's the quote? The small number of individuals can make the largest impact. Like, I think it comes down to the individuals and the collective response of individuals to say, like, that is not what I believe in. Like, I think it takes an individual to be able to know exactly why they're in education and be able to really, no matter, even if they have no army behind them, to stand up to the district office for what's
Yeah.
right. Like, I firmly believe that, and that's what's driven my practice, is that I don't need an army and I don't need like the chorus behind me. If I know what I believe about education, and I think like young teachers, we have to encourage them that it's like, I don't know, at some point, like, I've been willing to lose my job. I've been willing to lose my job over what I believe in.
I
And
love that. Yep.
that's the district. And I think you really have to, like anything else. And if you think of people who have changed history, it's people who are willing to adhere to those convictions, whatever the cost is, because it's really what you believe in. And I just think, like, as educators, we can't live in this bubble of fear, because, like, what do they know more than we do? They just have the
Right.
title, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They just have the title. I don't think they're any better, and it's no diss to admins, but like, they just have the title.
Yes.
And they may not even have as many years of experience as you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I think there should be a qualification. Like, you have had to have been in the classroom for X amount of years, because so many admins, so many leaders, it drives me freaking nuts.
Yes.
They lose sight of what it is to be that classroom.
Well, you can tell they did the steps to get to where they are. They didn't go through the teaching and experience and all that other process, right? Like, their whole mission in life or professional development, nice, Liz, was to become an administrator, right? And I think we see a lot of that. Don't you agree? That teachers within 5-6 years, they literally just became admin, correct? Yeah.
Well, I think you can see there's a big difference between people that go into education to be an administrator and those who become a teacher and then want to affect larger than a single class size at a time.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference, and usually you can kind of spot them. You can spot them pretty good.
And I always relate this to the entrepreneurial field, where you look at any great investor, Buffett, Ackerman, you look at any top CEO right now, they don't tell you to go through the training to become a CEO, to become an entrepreneur. What they tell you is, if you have a passion in life or you have an area that you're interested in, go start working for that type of company. So if you want to become your own entrepreneur and own a landscaping company, they don't tell you to start one right away. They tell you to go work for a successful business. So you learn the ins and outs. You learn how to hire. You learn how to fire. You learn how to do all of the accounting practices in day in and day out. So when you form your own business, you have the expertise to do it. And I am very passionate in this area, where I've seen too many times people within 5-6 years of becoming an educator or admin, and they haven't spent the time in the classroom. They haven't spent the time in dealing with day-to-day operations, working with students, working with those parents who are very adamant about their kids' growth, education. They don't work with colleagues at the same level, because their whole mission in life is to become an admin, right?
You guys
So-
ready to way? Oh, Chris. what were you
Oh,
gonna
I was just gonna say, do you have anything like to follow up with that, Liz? Because I was
say? No,
gonna.
I'm waiting
so-
for you.
So we're kind of swimming in the deep end of this conversation here. Let's go back to the shallow end a little bit. So, what is like
In
a
the
daily?
Shallow.
we, can,
Shallow.
we can cut that out.
Don't you dare.
So, okay, we talked about big picture things. Like, just on a random day, when we talk about like surprises, right? One thing I thought of immediately, and I kind of laughed at because I can picture it, is when you're working in your classroom with kids, and then all of a sudden you get the text that there's donuts and cookies in the class or in the teacher's lounge,
Awesome.
and you see all of a sudden a teacher start walking that way, and you know exactly. exactly where they're going.
I put a senior responsible for the class, and I go.
That is perfect, Chris. That was awesome. It's kind of like sitting in a meeting and when your colleague has a new baby, you're like, picture
You're-
the food thing, because that will get teachers any day, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
what were we talking about? There's pizza there's donuts. Like,
yeah. Or all of a sudden you're in a meeting and then they cut it out. Like they're like, oh, well, that's kind of all we got for today. And it was supposed to go another half hour. And then all of a sudden you're done and you have a half hour. Yeah.
Does it ever happen on Thursday morning?
Sometimes
Okay.
the director or the whoever's teaching it changes.
Who's ever
sometimes.
hosting it?
The host. There we go.
Let's segue here and we can start wrapping this up, but let's talk about surprises because one of the things that is posed to us, everything like burnout is big, like people are resigning. Some districts are offering resignation bonuses. Yet $1,000.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit. You might have to start over with that.
Oh shit. Okay.
Go. I'll be right back. You guys talk.
So
Okay.
I think one great unexpected surprise is when somebody comes to observe your class, but they send you an hour later, like kudos, right? Like they're like, hey, you did an outstanding job on this, this, and this. And you're like, I just showed a video today. Right? Like that is a great unexpected surprise.
That's good. That's a good surprise versus, hey, I just sat in your room for 10 minutes and I think you suck.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. Or here's 15 things you need to change.
No, what I was getting at was the fact that, like, we're getting $1,000 from our governor in
Yep.
the great state of Iowa, and you don't have to be a fan of hers, which, for the record, I'm not. However, like that recognition is like, I don't know what the motive is, but like that's a nice surprise that
Unexpected.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you guys what you're gonna do with your your unexpected. Oh, okay. Your unexpected $600 actually when it comes through our paycheck.
Yeah, after federal and state tax, I'm gonna pay bills.
People said on Friends, who's FICA and why are they taking all my money?
I don't know about you, Liz, but I think another great unexpected surprise is when you're in meetings and somebody recognizes you for something you've done.
Okay, you guys if everyone out there needs to know, like, yes, like I get it. Like, okay, you're totally frozen too. We're on video, everyone. So yeah. So I guess be prepared for tomorrow. So the biggest shout out of your lives.
Stop it. You better not. You better not recognize us tomorrow.
You begged for it. So tomorrow I'm just going to be like, woo.
Well, I can't take pleasure in giving you a hard time now because you're going to actually do it.
Yeah. So I'm giving you guys a shout out tomorrow. I feel like I should also bring donuts and pizza.
Yes, you owe us definitely lunch at some point.
Because to Chris's point, like surprises, like, oh my gosh, there's like food in here. So yeah. I don't know. What other topics?
We used to do, well, we still do. Our district does a teacher of the, is it the month or quarter?
So it's a shining star or something.
This is what I hear and see of you.
Yeah, we got that all.
We're breaking up apparently a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Our district does a teacher of the, is it quarter? Semester?
Do they?
I think it's a teacher of the semester.
It's something that they do and they recognize them at a board meeting.
I'm
Yeah, so they
giving you
rec-
guys I'm giving you guys the biggest shout out, Gooey, tomorrow. Like you've never seen.
You suck. I will discredit everything you say.
Oh,
I'll be sick tomorrow.
or we should like advertise at this podcast at faculty meetings.
Yes.
We'll have to ask. Shannon just downloaded it. She didn't know about it. She just downloaded it the other day. And then we had a couple other teachers that didn't know that they were working. You're a PR guy, PR lady, PR person.
I was asking you what you're gonna do with your $600 after taxes that you'll get from the governor.
I'm gonna put it into the podcast.
Are you guys putting that towards your land grant?
Ooh, land fund.
Well,
Hey.
our new thing.
I owe you money for some of this stuff too. I thought of that. Like,
Yeah.
I need to Venmo you money.
Our new thing is delinquent taxes on houses. So you basically pay the delinquent tax, you buy the house from the state, and if they don't pay, if the owner doesn't pay you the tax back, you own the house.
Yeah. Hey, we'll do that.
You froze while smiling. So I'm going to take that as a verbal yes from you, Liz.
Okay, so here's our homework for you, Liz.
To
Ready?
recap. Stop recording. Why are we still recording?
We're recording. So here's our homework for you. One, once we stop this, I'm gonna send you the audio, and you gotta tell me if it's worth the darn or not. Two,
Okay.
you gotta promote our podcast here
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, and then three, you gotta figure out merch. You're a merch person.
We need t-shirts during cluster about our podcast.
Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you with questions or topic ideas. Send us an email at bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at BellyUpPod, on Instagram at BellyUpToTheBlackboardPodcast, and subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform.